Good morning, everyone. Ricardo Wilkins here with another Champions Using Teams Effectively or C.U.T.E session. I am your host, Ricardo, Microsoft Customer Success Manager. And as always, we're here to just geek out on Teams, take any questions you may have, just chat it up. So glad you can make it either live or virtual. We may have my partner in crime, Stacy, joining us a little later, I think. And so, yeah, we'll jump on in here. I did see in the Q&A prior to the start here a question about meeting notes, which we had went over a few weeks back, having some trouble finding the meeting notes once you take them during the meeting. So while I don't know exactly what happened in your case, we can kind of go over that in general and see if maybe as I run through it, something about what I do will give you an idea. But your typical meeting. In fact, here's one we're looking at right here. This channel meeting that happened previously. If I were to just join this, let's see, okay, and in the three dots here, we do have meeting notes. So in this particular meeting, no one, I can tell from this that no one took any meeting notes in that meeting, but if I go ahead and hit take notes, it fires up and it does take us. So your question was kind of where were they or where are they? It creates a tab, in this case in the channel where that meeting is occurring, where I can then, proceed to take my notes, right? When I go to the meeting itself, now in this case, what's going on here? So I did take the notes, yeah. So it's bringing me back here. So the meeting notes are located here in the channel, and this is this guy. So if I come all the way out, we'll see. Hold on, am I confusing myself here? Let's see. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. This is the team here. I can tell by the little recording thing. I'm in the meeting there. Meeting notes are being taken. I can see as part of the chat of this meeting. The very fact that I started up the notes here is evident by this. Clicking it will take me to them. If I go back though, you can still see it as a dedicated tab at this point for this channel. Okay. So meeting notes are in the channel in this case. So that's a channel meeting. Let's try the same thing with, let's say just a regular, maybe a Meet Now meeting. So let's end this one. Leave this guy. Let's just fire up a Meet Now. I'm trying to think how this will actually, let's see how this goes. So we fire it up, we jump in. Alone, meeting notes is here. Take the notes, and in this case, it's taking us to the notes now. So hopefully you're kind of seeing the difference here. I had a channel meeting, so that meeting knows, or assumes the attendees are part of that channel, and at least in my mind, if I'm trying to think like Teams, I'm going to put those meeting notes in a tab in that channel because everybody in this meeting is, a member of the channel, so they'll see it. This one-off Meet Now, it's not a channel meeting; it's just its own meeting. And so where do those assets exist? They're in the meeting chat here in our chat area, our private chat one-to-one. So it's a tab in that space. In the past, we've talked about this being a collaborative area for where people meet. Even after they meet, continue to come here to talk, continue to collaborate, and in this case, see the meeting notes. Meeting notes are happening in the case of this one-off meeting here in the chat meeting area. Channel meetings would actually be in the channel in its own dedicated tab. In both cases, they're tabs. It's just where would they sit in the channel of the team where that meeting was created, or in the meeting space, workspace of that kind of one-off meeting. So hopefully that helps you find it. Maybe, yeah, I don't know which type of meeting you were trying to use, but I think those would be your two scenarios. So hopefully that helps. And let me try one more thing here. On the back end, I'm doing a little technical something or other here. So I'm going to do that. Okay, get that going. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Am I still in this meeting? Yep, I'm still in there. So I'll leave that out. But again, every time I go to meeting notes, click that. It's going to take me to where should take me to where the meeting notes reside. In this case, it takes me to the chat area of that meeting. In the case of the channel meeting, took me to also to the place of the meeting notes. Just happened to be in the channel in a dedicated tab. So I hope that helps to your question. If none of those scenarios is what you experienced, you can certainly maybe put some more clarity in the Q&A here. I can't think of another scenario, in terms of meeting notes, or where else they might go. I've always seen meeting notes appear in a tab like this. So, and then of course, if you're using meeting notes in a more generic sense, then let me know that too. If you're calling your OneNote notes your meeting notes. So hopefully I helped. The lack of additional question in the Q&A, I'm thinking maybe we got it. You can maybe send me a thumbs up or something. Let me know I got it for you. So yeah, so that's meeting notes. But what I did put in the Q&A, for those that are looking at Q&A, I did put the link to the previous session where we talked for about 20 minutes on meeting notes. So you could take a look at that too, if that may help. Okay. Cool beans. Feel free to put more questions. I was gonna, with the dead air, as they would say, I was gonna talk a little bit about some things. So earlier this week, I did a session for some customers that asked me to talk about one of my favorite topics, SharePoint, and lists and libraries and metadata and views. I have been a fan of SharePoint lists and libraries and views and metadata since before they were fancy with our new Microsoft lists and all the cool stuff we got going. And now everybody's on the list train, but I was on there first. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, let me check Q&A here. Yep. So the link helped you for that meeting notes. So cool. But yeah, I thought I'd just talk about lists and libraries and metadata a little bit, since I had prepared a demo for that customer, kind of show that. Of course, when we are talking about lists, the most modern way to talk about that is, here if I come to a tab, the actual Microsoft list, the new stuff. It's really a new skin on the same core fundamental technology, right? But we have this list concept or app essentially that lets us create lists, and it also has some pre-built ones for us to choose from as well. But in the case of what I was doing earlier today, I was helping with document libraries and metadata and that kind of thing. So I'll talk through that. Before I do that, I see a question about, is there a way to import your Outlook address book into Teams? I have groups established in Outlook, and I would like to not have to recreate the groups in Teams. So by that, I think you mean, if I go to my Outlook, I'm thinking, like in contacts, you have, groups, you've done a lot of work in this contacts area in your Outlook. And how can you bring all of that into your Teams world? So I'm not sure, but I feel like the groups you make here are kind of, it's one thing to have groups in the global address book. The groups and the work you've done in your, maybe your, like your own contacts area here. Not sure that that translates over into Teams, automatically. I think in this case here, I think this was a contact group I made for some reason. So I've added Deborah and Nestor to this. Let's use this and see if that even, if Teams even knows about Deborah and Fran. So if I were to maybe, let's say, try to add some members. I don't think it knows about Deborah and Fran's here. So I think that's really a group for me. I don't think I'm not aware of a way to kind of take the work I've done in that contact area in Outlook and use it. Now, making a distribution list or a group, again, in the global address book, the nose should apply, but the ones I create for myself in Outlook, I'm not aware of how they would come over into Teams.
Yeah, Ricardo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'll just add I guess confirm with you my understanding too. I think you're right on that, because in Outlook, you're scoping those contacts for yourself. It's not impacting those other folks. It's not making them members of anything officially. That's the difference. When you are leveraging groups in Teams, that's quite a different thing, because people really become tethered together in that group.
Yeah,
so you're right on.
Yeah. And so I feel your pain, though. I mean, I could imagine someone having put significant effort in some cool groups and whatnot, and then wanting to reuse that. But yeah, other than finding a way to import, get with your admins and somehow import that structure into the global book. I don't think there's going to be a way.
I would imagine that those personally scoped ones that you've leaned on in Outlook would probably translate to really great group chats, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you don't even need necessarily a team or a channel to interact with these folks, but you could have quick communication using group chat instead. So creating them, depending on how many you have, might not be as big of a headache as you think.
Yeah, it definitely depends on how much effort's been invested in that so far. But yeah, to your point, having groups here could be useful. I know I've created a few of my own different customer sets and things like that in here, but again, yeah, the thought of starting over here from scratch, if you've already made a big investment, I feel you. I empathize with you on that. So yeah, so not a great answer or solution there, I guess. Okay, let me dismiss a couple of things here. Yeah, so let me so I'll just jump back again, keep putting questions in the chat, but as I was talking about the lists, libraries, metadata, let's come back to my Teams area. If you hear the word metadata and are not sure what I mean, from the perspective of lists and libraries, we're talking about metadata is really the information about our information. So I've got a file, what are the properties on it? You've been using metadata as long as you've been using a PC, right? Because your file has a created by, modified date. That's metadata. Those are the properties of that file. But then, of course, in SharePoint, we get to take that to the next level. So, so in this case here, I'm actually looking at this in Teams, but I can also open it in SharePoint, as we know. And again, these are the columns that we have, and if you used SharePoint before, you can add additional columns. You're adding metadata to this, right? But one of the things I was trying to show is, why is this a good idea? And do one thing here. Slide. why is this a good idea, and how can it be useful? Hey, I've got my folder structure. Why do I need metadata rights? Because in the case of this one here, if I go, let me go full screen on this, make it a little bigger. I've got this file area here with HR docs, right? And if I start to drill into it, I've got something for each fiscal year, right? And in that fiscal year, I break it down in a quarter, very organized, right? And as I go into Q1, I've got some spreadsheets for these HR docs, the exempt staff and the non-exempt staff, right? So, you know, it's all good, especially if this schema makes sense to you, right? We think in terms of years and quarters in this company's case, right? So all is well, except though when you think about the fact that if I go into FY21 and Q2, there's also exempt and non-exempt staff. And now what if I'm interested, give me all the exempt staff information. I don't care about the time frame, right? So now this gets a little bit cumbersome, right? Or the, you know, or the fact that I'm, you know, going to different places or going to a new folder or creating a new folder every quarter. And of course, this could get even worse. I shouldn't say worse, but I mean, this can get more elaborate. You've probably all seen much more elaborate, highly nested folder structures. And so that's where something like metadata can help. And so if I go back over to SharePoint, because that's really where, if I'm going to do some column work, that's where it's going to happen. A lot of that functionality hasn't necessarily come over to the Teams UI yet. But I may want to then add columns here to kind of give more information about these documents. So for instance, here I have previously added a column, I'll just unhide it here, called basically exempt yes or no, right? And so now one can get a view of this, and let's say if this was a list of 100 documents, then I mean, this isn't as useful for 2 documents, but think 200 documents, to be able to come filter here and just show me all the ones that were exempt as yes, as you know, they've been previously tagged with yes or no. And so now I've got this filtered view. And to take that even further, well, I know there are other exempt documents out there. Let me make a view, which I have done previously, where in one click, I can always say, just show me all the exempt staff files across this library. I don't care which folder they're in, which is what we are trying to see here. Actually, let me go back here. Yeah, let me start from the beginning, come in, go into this document library, go to this view. And it's not completely obvious here, but this is an exempt folder from probably Q1, and this is up from Q2. So this view is ignoring folders, going and just finding all the documents where exempt equals yes and showing them here. So in some ways, you get the best of both worlds here. For those that want to see the document or the folder structure, they can still continue to do that. But for those that want a folderless view, they can do that. And so as you start to think through this, you can realize you can do a bunch of different views based on what you or your team needs to see, and can certainly even make more metadata. As you can see, I also added a column about the which fiscal year. I could basically start adding columns that basically duplicate what I was getting out of my folders. And so in this case, as I unhide yet another column here, come into here, now I'm seeing information about both the exempt status and which fiscal year it's a part of. Now this, as I was demoing it, I kind of just started playing around. This was showing the capability that I can actually tag it with 2 things. And this doesn't make sense in this case necessarily, but how do I make those changes? One could either do our nice little edit and grid view, which gives us this Excel looking way to go to our columns and change stuff. So let me, for instance, change this and make it make a little more sense. We even get things like being able to drag, just like in Excel, drag that property label across, and then I can exit. And now we're looking good there. I could have done the same thing by clicking it and going to the little information button here. I've got properties there. You can see I can edit columns. I can do all those cool things. And okay, and we got that there. So we got a couple ways to change those properties. The other one I had showed them that isn't always obvious is how synced the desktop app is to all of this. And so if I was to open this in the desktop app, if you're an old school Office person, you may remember an info pane that used to be here that would show those properties. If you remember that, then you and I are both, our age is up there. But so we don't have that info pane anymore. But if you come over to File and go to Info, you'll see that there's the standard properties are here. And if you keep looking down here, you'll notice down here, Show All Properties. And you can see my exempt in my fiscal year. So those properties that are coming over from SharePoint, the desktop app is aware of those as well. I mean, even able to change them, right? So that may have been something that's very subtle. You can certainly miss that if you don't kind of come spend some time in this area. But yes, those properties can be found there as well. So
my SharePoint admin alter ego is jumping for joy.
Right.
Yeah, been there, done that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, of course, if you have been a long-time SharePoint user, then you appreciate the Microsoft lists concept and all the prettiness that's there. I mean, this colored stuff, bubbles, whatever, you used to have to learn some JavaScript or something to get this. And even when you knew it, it still takes some time. As you can clearly see from this, that I didn't put any effort into these bubbles. In fact, here's the effort I put into it. If I add a new column, like choice, I'm adding more metadata. At most, I have to click this cute little thing to choose my color. I mean, that's about as hard the work that I'm going to have to do here for this. So, but you can see here, I could make a new column choice. Just decide which I don't know what pending or active or something. Just coming up with things. Could maybe even decide to make them radio buttons instead, things like that. And boom, there you go. And so then if I go back to my nice grid view, this nicely named piece here is now, all that cool stuff. If I exit this, click that, come over here. Just trying to see my little, there we go. I want to see my little radio buttons. There's my pending, all that good stuff. One thing that I'll point out, is this is a very simple example, right? If your library is larger, if your amount of columns you have gets larger, while it's still simple, planning is definitely going to be required to make sure this is a good experience for everyone. Even the planning of, should this be a fill-in field or versus a drop-down, right? Standardization. I want to make sure as the dozens of people who are going to be putting documents here, we all are choosing from the same list. That some of us aren't doing FY22 and others are writing out fiscal year 22, or someone are using 2022 versus 20. So the drop-downs where we can all choose the same standard labels becomes important. So again, a small little list like this, we could probably make it work, but as it gets bigger, older, now you've got 200 items that with a mix of different labels. How do you fix that? Which you certainly can. I've been on projects where that was the goal. Just save yourself some headache and do some thinking ahead and plan out these things as it gets bigger. The other thing that was asked by the customer, which was a good point, is although we've made a lot of advancements in all of this stuff, what really hasn't changed much is if you sync these things down, to your Windows Explorer, we're still not getting properties in this area, right? Those aren't coming through. So I've certainly got the documents and the standard properties, but you're not seeing the new ones I made. And I don't know that that's necessarily even on a roadmap to happen. So if you depend on, Windows Explorer and the synced folders here, you may have to go ahead and view online to be able to see everything that you want to see there. So something to keep in mind. Again, you are still only one click away. If I'm hitting view online, you're one click away from getting to all of that. But if you were trying to do it here, same with Teams, right? Teams is going to take you over to SharePoint. SharePoint's still the best place for that. So hopefully that helps. That's a very abbreviated version of what I did for another customer, but hopefully that helps. If you are out there thinking I'd love to see more of that, let me know. We can do that in future sessions. I can talk all day about listen libraries.